Here is your king's scepter, and here is your kingdom. With the scorpion, the cobra, and the lizard for subjects. Free them if you will. Leave the Hebrews to me. Give this prince of Israel 1 day's ration of bread and water.
1 day's ration? It'll take many days to cross this wilderness, if he can cross at all.
I commend you to your Hebrew God, who has no name. If you die, it will be by his hand, not by mine.
Hi there, this is Yahunatan. Glad you're watching this video. Been recording some series of videos, and know right now a lot of people are watching right now. It's not about people. It's hard to see the immediate benefits right now because it's so quiet. But no, the Father's telling me this person to go out here to perform this task and to keep speaking. For those of you who saw the previous video about this person waking up from this audible voice saying, get out of the cities, get out of the social structure, and do not partake of the curses, was hearing that audible voice. A couple days after that, got another audible voice waking up from a dream, and had previously watched the movie Jeremiah, a really good movie, but woke up and the words were saying, look, putting words in your mouth, you're supposed to speak at this time, it's time to perform, don't worry about it, just trust what I'm doing here, the Father will take care of you, just go out there and perform. And to hear those words really touched this person, because this person usually doesn't have dreams, but to wake up from these word dreams, that's not common. For years and years I've not had dreams, but all of a sudden having these dreams. And my father currently is on a trip with taking care of his sister and his mother at another house, and been gone this week. And it's interesting because he has a lot of dreams, but this person has been quiet with with dreams for years. But when he leaves, these dreams start to come up. Even a couple days after hearing that audible voice of putting the words in the mouth and so forth, had this dream about these classes this person was taking, all these wonderful classes. And it's interesting that dream happened because after this week, next week, going to be going through this database training and going through all these classes all week, so really could resonate with this dream, and just was learning all these great things. And remember all these buses out there in the parking lot, and people were just going out there and leaving, and were going out, but was going to go on one of the buses and missed one of them. There was one bus left that was waiting these people on the side. Remember this, they were kind of unsure if they were going to go on the bus or not. And remember, that being the last scene of, is this person going to go on that bus? And was recently just read Galatians, and was reading about the schoolmaster, and how the Torah is teaching us about the kingdom, and how the law of Yah works within us. But when we go out there in the bus and go forward in faith and listen to the Spirit, the spiritual calling, that is the application of the Torah. That's what it's all about, of the faithful. It talks about Abraham and how Isaac was according to the promise. And the promise that the Father is giving certain people right now is that you're being prepared for a future time in order to go out there in faith. And you need to show that to others so that they can be convicted to do that similar task. And when reading Galatians, it really affected me in the sense that been talking through the previous series and this series of how there's a difference between being a slave and a servant, and really the desire to be a servant, of the King, And when looking at that and start to realize there is another point to not just going outside of the slave mentality into the servant mentality, but there's another stage of going from that servant mentality to that son mentality. I think when Yeshua was speaking about the son who was a slave to sin, but then came back to be a willing servant, the Father called him to be his son, and really sensed that, when reading Galatians, of being the son, who was going to be not just adopted, but committed to the Father's will. That's a performance that, that's when Yah wants you to be part of his family, and start to realize there is another aspect to this. There's this closeness of knowing the Father. When you know him at this point, he considers you a son and part of his household because you're part of his covering. That's really important today, especially with all the plagues that are happening in our cities right now. A lot of problems, a lot of adversity between people, a lot of, we're hearing people, a lot of anger out there, and debates and conflicts, especially on the political end. But it's also happening on a spiritual level, with a lot of these groups and religions and so forth. There's a lot of confused people, and people are gathering into different groups of ideologies and so forth. It's time to get out of that and start really focusing on what the Father is telling us right now. Is it time to go out? That's really the question, is really been filling this group, this small group right now in this with Swordfire, is going to pass through a threshold in which they're going to apply what they learned and actually move forward in faith. And that's really the calling, is that schoolmaster isn't necessarily going to be there at that point, because you have learned, you have been scolded, you have been taught the ways, the Torah of how the rules of the kingdom works. But now it's time to apply it, and not to have someone constantly be washing you, but for the Spirit to be within you, and that you can act on your own. It's like a parent who's teaching his or her child, his child. He's saying, you shouldn't do this, you can't, these are things you shouldn't do, these are things you should focus on, but I'm not going to always be there, right, to watch everything you do. You're going to have to eventually go out there and do it yourself, and remember, my words, remember what I've told you, so that when a situation happens, you'll have my voice within you speaking to you, and you're doing right or wrong or whatever, and you can do what you can move forward knowing you're going the right direction. A lot of people noticed they always need a policeman or a schoolmaster, so to speak, to constantly tell them you shouldn't be doing this. Look at the security and how we've taken this to a whole new level where people cannot watch themselves because they're still under this oppression. And instead of looking at the Torah of the Father, they look towards the law of man and all the regulations and everything. Look at all the laws that have been passed and still can't watch over themselves, and they constantly have to have that taskmaster over them, scolding them, telling them they're doing wrong. That's the slave mentality that this society is under. Yet those who have gone right beyond that law, follow this right, the spirit of what these laws are trying to teach, they are not under the curses, right? They can go forward without worrying about a policeman, right, watching them if they go over the speed limit or so forth. They're driving forward. It's a natural thing they don't have to think about. That's the sort of mindset. This is the spiritual, aspect to the Father's Word, and how we're seeing His Torah, right? That's His words are light, right? His precepts are light if we simply obey them and do what He's telling us to do. But right now, He's saying, look, you learned about the kingdom, right? About the laws of the kingdom. Now it's time to apply them. And where it becomes a natural instinct, it's like tempering that sword. It's like going out there and practicing with, with the schoolmaster, practicing how to do these different, acts and how to defend yourself and so forth. But then the time comes where you're supposed to go out there and actually perform the task in battle. Instead of thinking about what moves you're going to make is going to come natural, and those people are going to succeed over those who are thinking twice and not, do not trust in the ways. They're still trying to learn. And you're seeing constant. You go out there in this world and you see people who still can't get these basics, even with man's law, let alone Yah's laws. And you see it though spiritually within these gatherings, that people constantly are fighting against or have some animosity against some sort of words of scripture that they don't want to understand, even though it's very simple, but they don't want to listen to it. They don't want to follow it, and we'll find some excuses or something, that points out, well, this is an allegory, or this doesn't apply anymore, or do we really need to do this when we should be focusing on this, or why are we straining on these regulations or whatever that's not even was meant for us, but we want to just partake in these rituals and eat it up. And it's wonderful to partake in all these signs and these wonderful teachings of within these feast days and so forth. This is wonderful stuff, but we need to start realizing what it is trying to teach and learn those teachings and apply it within our lives upon the moment we're called to go out there and perform, to go out on that bus, and for Yah to step on the front, go up to the driver's seat and drive us where we need to go. That's the Spirit driving us further, driving us forward within the faith we need to go. And to perform, we need that faith. That's why Abraham was able to step out, right, of the Chaldeans and go into, cross over Hebrew, that threshold. That's how he was able to do that. Was just watching the Ten Commandments last night. A wonderful movie. Just didn't realize how long it was, but it was really nice to see, a person who is really being called, was learning, just had that aspect of his life where he was learning, of how to lead men and all the, that aspect of his life, and then to be a shepherd and so forth in that life, and then to be called to call his, his people out of Egypt, that took, quite a bit of a learning process. But we need to recognize those thresholds just as Moses did when he crossed over into, the Egyptian lifestyle to the spiritual lifestyle of seeking the Father. Who's this Father?
Lord, why do you not hear the cries of their children in the bondage of Egypt?
I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. Therefore I will send thee, Moses, unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring my people out of Egypt.
Who am I, Lord, that you should send me? How can I lead this people out of bondage? What words can I speak that they will heed?
Moses wants to ask the Father, right? He asks them. He's asking, wow, have this question to really ask, the Father, why are you holding the Hebrews in Egypt for all these years? Why don't you help them? And eventually the Father reveals it to him that it's the Father has heard the Hebrew cries, and it's time for you, Moses, to go out there and free these people. And how did he free them? It's something to look at. There is a reason why this is part of the 5 books, this story of the hero's journey. What's the journey? Okay, what is he learning right through these experiences of going through the Egyptian lifestyle, letting go of that Egyptian lifestyle, and removing people who are oppressed from that Egyptian lifestyle? There's certain words he spoke to the Pharaoh, okay? And who's our Pharaoh today? That's something you need to ask. Who is the taskmaster today? What is holding people in bondage, right? That's what we need to look at, not just according to the laws of man, right? The laws of our social structure, but of the laws of the Spirit, okay? How that is keeping us in place. Where are we going to take that, okay? Not just us, but the Spirit that is going to take the law and write it upon our hearts. That's what it's about, and where we act according to His will. It's an action. It's a relationship. Action, relationship. You have to be ready. You have to be ready to act when the cue comes. And the Moedim, these signs in the heavens, have taught us it is time to perform.
Woe unto thee, O Israel! You have sinned a great sin in the sight of God. You are not worthy to receive these 10 commandments.
We're gathered against you, Moses. You take too much upon yourself. We will not live by your commandments. We're free.
Hey, there is no freedom without the law.
Whose law, Moses? Yours? Did you carve those tablets to become a prince over us?
Who is on the Lord's side? Let him come to me.
And the people make me do.
Joshua! Joshua!
He showed you no land flowing with milk and honey. I show you a God of gold. Come with me. Follow me.
Blasphemers, idolaters, for this you shall drink bitter waters. God has set before you this day his laws of life and good and death and evil. Those who will not live by the law shall die by the law.
It is time. We have learned some really great things. But if we constantly are looking at them through the eyes of a pupil who is constantly under a schoolmaster, where is that going to lead us? Is that going to stop us from getting on that bus? That's really the message today. Are those of us who are prepared, and there are some of you who are ready for this, to go out there and to step in on that bus and allow the Father to take you where you need to go. It's time to go back home. You've learned what you've learned what you could in this school setting, and Yah's really placed it upon your heart. That doesn't mean, people say this is all void, this law is all void. It's not about that. It's about application. It's been ingrained in you, and now it's time to perform. It's as simple as that. It's simple. These things are simple. It's time to stop being the child, right? And start acting according to the will of the Father, right? The Father has ingrained, do this, do not do this, right? Those commands are ingrained in you. That's what the parent teaches the child. But now it's time to go out there and to have the Father within you, right? His words within you as you go out there. And it's time to perform and show others the Father's ways. It's as simple as that. Anyways, this is Yahunatan, another great message. Going to go in training next weekend. We'll give you another video. It's been a very trying time for this person. Been pretty busy, but no, it's a preparation to go out there and do something wonderful. Not for myself, not for other people, yet for the Father in heaven. And going to give a prayer right now. Father in heaven, Father, there are people out there who are being convicted right now to not just learn your ways and have them ingrained in their spirit, but to perform and go on that bus when you call them to go forward with your spirit. They need to recognize that they can't just stay outside wondering if they're going to go in or not. Life goes too fast. It's so fast. It's time for them to realize what they're meant to do. The cue has come. The Moedim has come for your people to perform, and you're waiting for them to do what needs to be done. You are a very patient Father, a Father who is quick to judge those who go against us, but is long-suffering for us to learn what you have to give to us. We need you, Father, today. Give us the strength and the ability to walk in your will according to your ways. Let your words be within us forevermore. Thank you, so be it, in the Father's name. Please remember this message. Peace be with you, and peace be with all those who follow you, and to go home to the Father. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
as the deer longs for the water brooks, I long for him. Oh, my soul, why are you troubled within me? For God is our refuge, our fortress and strength. Hope in Him I shall again praise His name. Though the fields give no food, oh, I still choose to always follow Him. Though the sun disappear, I won't fear, for He's my strength and shield. In a dry, weary land, I thirst for Him. I will seek Him as long as I live. For God is our stronghold, our tower of strength. Trust in Him, I shall again praise His name. Though the mountain should quake and fall to the sea, I will run to Him. Though the battle still rages, I proclaim that He's my strength and shield.